following program is an encore presentation.
How do you do? We're about to unfold the story of Frankenstein.
Quite a good scene, isn't it?
Well, hello!
Oh, I thought I was alone. Good evening.
Well, we've warned you.
You've been warned. Welcome to the first bonus episode of Frankenstein Minute in honor of Karloff Week 2019.
Yes.
Thought we'd do something special, so we're going to talk about Boris Karloff. Specifically, we're going to talk about for a very long time. Probably not as long as we could.
No.
But we're going to talk about Boris Karloff, specifically our favorite Boris Karloff movies.
Yes, our top 10 favorite. Preface this by saying these aren't what we feel are necessarily the top 10 best Karloff movies, although I think there's a lot of that crosses over just naturally. But there are personal favorites.
Yep.
So I have my 10 and Bill has his 10.
We have not revealed them to one another. Although mine's sitting right in front of me, you probably peeked.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. We kept it in a mayonnaise jar on Funkin' Wagnall's porch.
So the only thing that left to be done in preparation for this momentous occasion is the ritual coin flip, the coin toss, to determine who's going to go first. So do I do it? Here's what I want to know. Do I do it like this and then like that?
Sure.
Okay.
Like you just did.
All right. Do you want to call it now or?
I'll call it heads.
Oh boy, heads.
Oh,
so Tom is going to go first.
I go first.
All right.
Starting down. Our top 10 countdown is. I should not ever attempt to do impressions.
No, that was perfect.
Was it dead on?
It sounded more like Shaggy. But
all right. Well, coming in
keep the coin just in case we need it for anything else.
Settle an argument.
Never settle an argument.
Can't hurt.
Can't hurt.
Well, my number 10, released November 5th, 1932 from MGM at 68 minutes, is The Mask of Fu Manchu.
Nice.
I wasn't sure this would make my top 10. And you'd sent me to a website that pile in a bunch of data, and it kind of chooses for you. This is the order that they're in is based upon that.
Yes, the preference revealer.
Is that what it's called?
I'll put a link to it in the something or other.
Yeah,
the show notes or whatever.
I usually don't do these kind of lists personally, and so I struggled with trying to find. I started with 30, and whittled it down.
27 or something like that. You said.
Yeah, I whittled it down.
This is great that you mentioned this on the first one because it's a great introduction to what it is we're trying to do. So the way this works, you just give it the list, you paste it in, and then it asks you questions. Which one do you like better?
Do you prefer over
you
this?
prefer this one or that one? I was going to give examples, but
probably not.
They better not do that. A little too early. But I did the same thing. That's how I got my list.
Bookies in Vegas have a lot of money on what the top fives are going to be.
Yeah, exactly. So that's true. That's true. Not too soon.
Yeah.
Yep. It's like we can still get our bets in.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I just chose it because it always makes me laugh. There's a lot of it that is very, very, very problematic in this day and age.
I mean, almost all of it.
Almost all of it is racially insensitive in one way or another. And it goes both directions, I think. Because there's a famous line where Karloff actually says we must kill the white man and take all of his women. Pretty strong for 32, I think. It's still pretty rough stuff.
Yeah. The only thing I noticed that it isn't that doesn't happen, which is a surprise, is Karloff doesn't do the Asian stereotype voice.
No,
it's his voice.
It's his voice.
Just sounds like him talking.
He's camping it up a little bit.
Sure.
I think he and Myrna Loy, who plays his daughter, realized the only way to get through this and not look like an idiot is to kind of do it a little tongue in cheek, kind of camp it up.
Yep.
And that works. They were right. It was the only way this would ever work. So he's having fun. He's having a ball. He's in drag, and apparently it's a Chinese woman's wedding gown that he's.
Is that
wearing.
right?
That's what I've read. I don't know.
That's pretty good.
Some of this comes off of IMDb, so God only knows how accurate that is.
That's right.
I tend to take that with a grain of salt. He's just having a ball, just being silly. It's got what you would normally associate with a serial. The kind of
There you go.
thrills.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of like like one of those condensed Flash Gordon where they took the 12 chapters and cut it down to an hour and a half, so it's nearly incomprehensible.
Yes.
So that's kind of how this plays out.
Yep. I think that's its strength.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It moves very fast. It's very silly. You don't have a lot of time to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the film we were talking about who was on the table in Frankenstein going up and whether it was actually Strickfaden doubling for Karloff or not. And this is the film where for sure you can actually see that it's not Karloff in the shot where there's a big lightning arc shooting across the room through this sword, and it's scary in and of itself.
Yep. This is not spoilers, but no surprise.
No surprise.
I've been watching a lot of Boris Karloff movies coming up to this, and I watched this one the other week, and that's it's so obvious that it's not him. I didn't realize it was that obvious that it was. I think even on a little TV screen. Yeah. I wasn't watching it on a huge screen.
I was watching it on my laptop. And,
Can you imagine in the theater people were like,
whoa.
Is that meant to be the same guy?
I think a wiser decision would have had his back to the camera.
Yeah, something.
Whatever.
There were choices that didn't. But
well, this had a troubled production, as is I guess fairly typical at MGM.
Okay.
Seems like Karloff first day asked to see the script and was literally laughed at. Script was changing daily.
Yeah.
And that shows. But that's, again, typical. Ask the Marx Brothers. That happened all the time.
Yeah.
Buster Keaton found it immensely frustrating.
Yeah, he didn't like MGM
No,
much.
he did not. And if you've seen the films he made there's a good reason why he didn't like MGM very much.
Yeah.
And this had two directors. I think after the first week or so, it started as a guy named Charles Braben. Don't know much about him. Didn't bother to look him up.
Nope.
Because he was fired.
Okay.
And replaced with Charles Vidor. I also don't know a whole lot about him.
He didn't go by King?
He did not go by King. It's not the same guy.
Not the same guy, so to hell with him.
Yep, fuck him. Interesting, one of the screenwriters was Edgar Allan Wolfe, who was also noted for The Wizard of Oz as one of the
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And
You
the
said
others,
Edgar Allan. I thought you were going somewhere else.
No.
Because he'll come up. This will come up.
Yeah, it'll come up for sure. Probably numerous times.
Yeah.
Karloff made this in between The Old Dark House and Before the Mummy.
Man.
Yeah, he was at 32.
Cranking them out.
Late 31 into 32 was a busy time.
Mm-hmm.
Even apart from the horror films he made a ton of other movies at the same time. Some more gangster things. Mm-hmm. Scarface came out in that era.
Yeah.
He was a busy guy.
When did he make Scarface? Did he make it 32 or was it? I was convinced that he made it before
Frankenstein.
Before Frankenstein. In fact, I think I might have said that on one of our podcasts.
Yeah, see,
but it comes out in 32, so I'm guessing not. But
well, he shot Frankenstein in late summer of 31.
Yeah, so it could have been.
Could have been.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But then again, he's hardly in Scarface. So,
he's got just a few scenes. But he's memorable.
Mm-hmm. He's got a memorable death in that one.
He has a memorable death in that, yes, definitely.
It's weird to be talking about Boris Karloff movies because everything we've just mentioned, every time I think, okay, can I talk about this? Or can I talk about that?
Should we not even say it? Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know how many times I wanted to reference Criminal Code or something like that in the past, and we couldn't.
Yeah, that's true.
Because we said,
well, that's what it is. It's all spilling out now.
Yes.
Now we can talk about Boris Karloff.
This is the better part of.
That's why it's called Karloff Week. We're just going to do this. This episode is 1 week long. It's 168-hour marathon. Probably not.
No, I doubt that. Let's see. Oh, yeah. He's one of 4 or 5 actors to have played this character. Most notably, Christopher Lee did it in the 60s in a series that just aren't very good. Famously, it was, unfortunately, Peter Sellers' last film that's not being there.
Oh, God, I forgot about that.
Yeah, where he does a dual role. And I mean, if you watch it knowing it's not going to be great, it's a little fun.
It's okay.
The fiendish plot of Dr. Fu Manchu, it's okay. It's not horrible. Not as bad as some of the Christopher Lee ones directed by Jesus Franco, so Pretty much anything directed by Jesus Franco, I wouldn't wipe my ass with it for fear of getting some of it on me because they're just that bad.
Never heard of him. So
you're lucky.
He's not a Hammer guy, or
no. He was a Spanish guy, and it's like he made a film every afternoon. And they're just very clumsy, very crude. It didn't seem to matter if he had a budget or not. They were just pretty bad.
Yeah.
There were apparently 13 plus novels with this character. I don't know much about it beyond a couple of movies that I've sat through. This being the main one. I think this is probably the most well known.
Yeah.
Fu Manchu. There was a serial, and none of them. Well, it's MGM, so everything was expensive and big and overblown.
That's what I noticed about it. Is it shows.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
This
they
looks
pull
like
punches.
They pulled out all the stops to make a movie that makes you wince when you watch it. Like you said about it being racially insensitive.
Yes.
Once you allow yourself to sort of get used to the racial insensitivity, then it smacks you in the face with more.
Yes, it does.
It's just like you can't stop thinking about it.
You can't really get away from it.
It's really bad.
Yeah, it is. And that's kind of the character, I guess, comes with the territory.
Yep.
This evil Oriental genius.
Yes.
But he references that he studied at Oxford, and
that's true.
It's a curious thing.
Yep.
And he's not unsympathetic either. He's evil, but I think it's because it's Boris, for one thing.
That's probably.
We're going to be inclined to like him no matter how evil the character is. And we'll find that again and again and again as we go through our lists.
It's going to be a theme, probably.
Yeah, that even though he plays these diabolical characters, there's something inherently likable.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because we were conditioned because of the Grinch or whatever at an early age, or Frankenstein itself, to kind of want to feel sympathy for a Karloff performance.
Maybe it's the lisp.
Well, yeah,
because it comes across with a real impediment, and you're like, wow, he's really pulling this off with a speech impediment.
There's another one that I'm sure will pop up on both lists later where he really uses it to his advantage.
Yes,
right. Here too, I think he does.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the first big Karloff movies after Frankenstein where he had dialogue.
Yeah.
Certainly he has none in Old Dark House.
Yeah.
This and The Mummy were kind of the big dialogue-heavy roles for him at the beginning, and I think he's got a great voice. It's very has a not gonna say musical quality to it, but we've talked about it with Colin Clive with the timbre of his voice in Frankenstein. It has just a lilt to it or something,
right?
That I find very appealing.
Yeah. Yep.
Lisp or no lisp.
Yep.
Yeah, Yellow Peril was a big thing in these films. And actually, the VHS release in the 90s edited a lot of it out. Yeah,
really?
A lot of that was cut out. Yeah, the VHS I had was...
I guess I had read that.
It was edited down. And then when they did the DVD, it's part of like a MGM set or something that they put that all back. I'm not going to say restored, it's just not edited.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
Yeah, I guess so. Not a special edition.
Not a special edition in any. There's really not a whole lot special about it other than the MGM gloss that it has.
Yeah. MGM gloss, that's a thing, definitely. Yeah.
You'll see that in, certainly like Mark of the Vampire a few years later.
Yeah, true. That movie's just like a piece of shit.
It's a terrible movie, but
other than the fact that it's gorgeous.
It looks great, yeah.
That's a great one.
Yeah. There's a famous anecdote where he's injecting some mind control drug into a character's neck, and what they did so it looks like the needle is actually sinking into something is they had a baked potato on the up camera side of the actor's neck that Karloff would stick the needle in and just inject the fluid. Potato being a potato, this additional fluid caused them to burst open. So they exploded potato after potato doing this. And apparently Karloff and the actor Charles Starrett could not stop laughing to the point where they had to call it a day and come back in the morning and do it again.
Man, it's hard to imagine what the set would have been like. That sounds delightful and fun.
Yeah.
But it also sounds like it was all just right on the knife's edge, ready to fall apart at any moment.
I think you could say that about most MGM movies.
Yeah.
They just had an interesting production technique.
Yeah.
I don't know if it always works or not. This was one of was this a Thalberg? I don't remember now. I should know that, but I don't think so, because he was doing Freaks at around the same time with Todd Browning.
Yep.
And we all know how that turned out.
Yep. Not on my list. Freaks
No,
is not on my list.
Not on
so
any list, yeah.
No.
Nor is Mark of the Vampire. But,
No, Mark of the Vampire is not on this list. Although, we have, if we ever, we'll see. We've got a few years.
We got a while. So there you go. That was my number 10.
All right, so I'm up.
You're up. Go for
My
it.
number 10 is a movie called Targets.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know how to introduce Targets. It's a 1968 film. It's sort of the, it reminds me, because you mentioned Peter Sellers' last film, Isn't Being There.
Right.
It's this crappy Fu Manchu movie. This is the movie that isn't Boris Karloff's last film, because he goes on to make some crappy movies down in Mexico or something.
Well, his scenes were shot in Los Angeles in a day or two.
All right.
And then the rest of the films were shot later in Mexico.
Okay.
And it looks it.
Yeah, all right.
I don't know if you've seen any. I haven't seen all of them, but I think there's 4 of them. And
I haven't seen any of them, so I don't know.
They're hurtful, so.
They're pretty painful?
Yeah.
So this is, I can't tell if I'm putting my chin right on the microphone here.
It's actually in your mouth, so you might.
It's right in my mouth this time. You'll hear me for sure. So this movie, it's great because it's made at the same time as another movie, or it's okay. I don't want to say this. It opens up with another movie. It opens up with the end of a Roger Corman film called The Terror. The Terror. Thank you.
Yeah.
And my understanding is they kind of signed up Boris while he was making The Terror to make this one.
I'm just going to say it right now. This is my number 9 film.
All
so
right,
while
so
we're
it's
here,
complicated.
we'll just
bounce around a little bit,
back and forth, because there's no point in my holding back while you're talking about it.
Okay. So we're skipping ahead to your number 9.
This is my number 9, as well as your number 10.
Yeah.
What I understand happened is they were shooting The Raven.
Okay.
And Corman wanted to. They had the sets for like a few more days.
Okay.
And no one can pinch a penny harder than Roger Corman.
Okay.
And he contracted Boris for a few extra days, and Jack Nicholson. They scribbled down a few scenes, and they shot just a couple scenes of dialogue with Boris, and then literally wandering back and forth on these huge sets left over from The Raven, with the idea that this will be used in a film later.
Okay.
They canned it, and he promised Boris, I think it was like $15,000 for profits from The Terror.
All right.
And so 3 or 4 other directors shot the rest of it. Corman went on to other things. Coppola shot a lot of it. Apparently Nicholson. By the end of it, whoever's not directing when the music stops is out. And The Terror comes out. Didn't really do all that well. It's not that great. Have you seen it?
I've seen the end.
Yeah, well, you've seen the end if you've seen this. Yeah, it's not awful.
Yeah,
but it's certainly not going to be on anyone's top 10 Karloff list. That's for sure.
Or Nicholson.
Or Nicholson.
Matter.
Yeah.
It's really strange to see Jack Nicholson as a young man.
It is. Well,
because I don't know. Maybe just because I'm not the right age.
Oh,
but some people, I just look at him and I go, that doesn't make sense. He can't be young. He can't be that young. He's the young, handsome lead of The Terror.
Yeah.
And he's this old crazy dude.
He's the Joker.
He's the Joker. Yeah.
So Peter Bogdanovich, who wrote and directed this, had been doing a lot of second unit work for Corman, had made a few documentaries, and wanted to do a feature film. So Corman's like, as per usual, make it as cheap as you possibly can. Here's the conditions. Use footage of The Terror to pad this thing out as much as you can. And I owe Karloff some money, so throw him in there as well.
So this is where it sort of seems brilliant to me, is someone hands you the footage from The Terror.
Right.
9 out of 10 people are going to try and make a movie
around
that footage, whereas Bogdanovich obviously just it shows it in the screening room at the beginning of the film, and then they show it on a drive-in screen at the end of the film.
Yeah.
That's pretty clever.
It is very clever. Well, it's kind of 2 worlds colliding in 2 worlds of horror, I guess.
Yeah.
Because Karloff, if you're not familiar with the film, you should be, first of all.
Yeah.
And Karloff playing himself is basically, to a degree, because he's playing this the old horror star. And they actually reference real films that he was in. They actually show clips from the Criminal Code.
And The Terror.
And The Terror, yeah. But he plays this Byron Orlock, who is retiring. He's fed up with Hollywood. He's fed up with movies in general, fed up with being the main horror guy. And that's where Karloff and Byron Orlock diverge.
Yeah.
Is because Karloff never regretted any of it. He was thankful for being typecast his entire life.
Yeah.
It made him a millionaire, so why would you complain about it?
Right.
So but Bogdanovich had him for 2 days. They ended up going 5, and what I understand is Karloff did the extra 3 days for nothing because he was so behind the project.
That's cool.
So they had a hotel room set built on a sound stage. It's actually the same set as the house that the young boy lives in.
Oh, really?
Yep. They just redressed it and repainted it.
I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Huh.
And there's a famous shot. It's a scene, but a shot where Karloff is telling this story. It's done in a continuous one take, and the camera, it's really, really wide shot at the beginning, and it slowly tracks forward into it. It ends on a close-up of him. And it's great. He does it just beautifully. It's a story he had done on, I think, another radio show and a few TV episodes as well.
So it's something that really happened to him?
No, it's just a story. It's actually an M. Somerset
the story.
Mom.
That's right. The story of
the Appointment in Sumara.
Okay,
is
that's
what
right.
It's called.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
I know which one you mean.
Yeah.
It's really affecting. It's really quite disturbing.
It is a disturbing film. Well, the other part, other than the
Byron Orlock part isn't disturbing at all.
No, it's reflecting
sort of
changing Hollywood. But part that's really disturbing. Go ahead.
Yeah, is about it is like two films. It's about a guy. I think the term is spree killer.
Yes.
He decides he's just going to go and kill a bunch of people. And what's weird about it is it almost works better if you know that going in. And so like the movie poster so at some point he types out a note saying what he's going to do, he's about to do. And that was on one of the movie posters. So it's almost like the movie might work better if you know that going in what's going to happen, because you see him go through.
Well, the first time you see him, it's just after they're in the screening room watching The Terror. Karloff and his secretary and Bogdanovich actually plays the screenwriter, are getting into his limo.
And in his usual inimitable style.
Well, he is what he is.
He is what he is.
He's all right.
He's all right. I've seen worse.
I've seen him do worse. If you've seen The Other Side of the Wind, you've seen him do worse. They're getting into, they're on the streets in Hollywood, just outside the studio or the offices or wherever it was, or the screening room, and having a little discussion. Meanwhile, across the street in a gun shop, this character was Bobby, I think his name was.
Sounds right.
But you're in a gun shop, and the guy, this killer, this Bobby or whatever, is buying a gun. And there's also then the famous image, which is on some of the other posters, of Karloff's profile with the crosshairs.
That's right. I think that's the cover of the DVD.
Yeah, it is. And so that's the first time you see him. If you're going into it fresh, you don't know. He's as disturbed as he is, but it becomes abundantly clear very quickly.
Yeah.
That he's a little fucked up.
Yep.
Or a lot fucked up. I guess you don't do this sort of thing if you're not.
Well, he also looks really, and I don't know if it's the time period. I don't know what I guess it's partly the time period, but he looks really clean cut. He seems like a clean cut, normal, I guess is the word I want to use.
Yeah, well,
guy.
I think that's the idea. Is that, and the house that they live in was deliberately. It's almost like it's out of Edward Scissorhands. There's like no decorations on the wall. Everything is very almost cartoonish, deliberately so in this house.
Yeah.
There's the shot that they're having dinner, and it's like it's from a sitcom where they're sitting around. You're the fourth wall.
That's right.
And it looks very artificial, but I think that's on purpose to point up the phoniness of this his world.
So I didn't take it that way. I just thought it was cheap, but that makes sense.
No, I think it's deliberate. I think compare that set to the hotel room set, which is very, very detailed.
Okay.
Full of stuff everywhere. As it looks like, Orlock has been living in this hotel room for quite some time.
Yeah.
So I have to say it's deliberate.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Because everything else is so detailed and so well done that I can't imagine that it was just, we don't have money to finish this set.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah, it's really fascinating. The things that are more affecting to me are the parts with, I think it is Bobby. Yeah. Because you watch him go, he goes up on a big, I don't know, silo of some kind.
Yeah, it was an oil thing.
An oil thing, and just starts firing
picking
shots,
people off at
picking
random
people
on
off
the freeway.
in the freeway.
Which is actually based on a real event.
Okay.
The
I
Highway 101 or
I
something
didn't know that.
shooter. Yeah.
I guess I assumed he was probably that it was probably more inspired by that guy who did got up on the tower in Texas or
I think
whatever.
that's more at the end when he's in the drive-in.
Okay.
But yeah, no, there was in California just a few years before this. It was an actual event.
Someone did that, and because as he's doing it, I'm thinking this is really not easy, probably to do to just pick people off in their cars going down the
As
freeway.
they're going down the freeway at 60 miles an hour or whatever.
We unfortunately have had so many of these events now that we can think about these kinds of things. It's actually normal to think about how such a thing would take place.
Right.
And the way it usually takes place is you get a bunch of people together. Ugh, it just sounds so awful to even think about. But there's the guy. You picture the guy at that Batman
movie. Yeah.
That's stand up at the front of a movie theater. You're gonna just pick them
mow
off. You
down
probably get six before anybody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, this one it's on a freeway, and what's interesting about it is that's got to be a good 15 minutes of this movie.
Yeah.
Is he's like packing his lunch. He takes his lunch.
He's got his lunch and a bottle of Dr. Pepper. And,
right. And he's in his bag full of guns, and he loads them, and he does everything, and one of them falls.
Very
and
meticulous.
Very meticulous, and we watch all of it happen. You see it. It's all. I was going to say almost real time, but I guess it probably is.
Pretty more or
pretty
less.
much real time, and then he gets away.
Well, the guy comes out, worker realizes something's up.
Yeah.
And climbs up there and says something, and he gets shot. And the dummy that's used as Colin Clive at the beginning or at the end of Frankenstein is used here for the guy falling off the.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
It's got the same where the legs bend the wrong way and. That kind of thing.
I'm not sure what happens at the end. I don't know if I should be skipping to the end, but my notes are a little bit haphazard.
Okay, no, that's fine.
So at the very end,
well, okay, you need to set it up first. What's going on at the end is they're having this screening of The Terror.
Yep.
And Orlock/Karloff is making a personal appearance, and he says it's his last. This is it. I'll do this, then I'm going back to England, and I'm done.
Yep.
Which, should have happened in real life.
Should have happened in real life.
Meanwhile, the shooter, this Bobby, has positioned himself. He's climbed up into the screen and poked a little hole and has started picking off people in their cars as they're watching the film.
Yeah. If
they have the dome light on or when he can see them, then they're done.
Yeah, just maybe a better example than I was talking about before of something a lot easier to do.
Yeah.
Than
you've got sitting ducks basically.
Sitting ducks.
Shooting fish in a barrel at this point.
Yeah. And presumably have no idea what's even going on because they're watching a movie.
Yeah, most people have no clue.
Yeah.
It takes quite a while. This goes on for quite some time.
Yep. And you would think in real life, you're sitting at a drive-in, even if somebody next to you was like doing something, you'd go, that's interesting. And then you go back to watching the movie, probably.
Yeah.
So that one makes a lot more sense. So that's happening. So then...
a little quick thing. The first guy is in the phone booth that gets shot. Mm-hmm. Apparently it's Mike Farrell from MASH.
Oh, God, really?
B.J. Honeycutt.
B.J. Honeycutt is the first to get hit?
Apparently.
Oh.
I couldn't tell when I watched it, but again, I watched it on my laptop, so I'm not looking at it on my 60-inch screen or whatever. So.
Yeah. Now I can picture it being him, but then...
Yeah, well, I can picture... If I told you it was Alan Alda, you could picture that,
that's
too.
probably true. Well, he's the second one, famously.
And then Wayne Rogers,
and then,
he's just going through
just going through Elliot Gould. It goes a little weird at one point. Gary Berghoff twice.
Twice, it's...
All right.
Oh, so anyway,
So then, okay, so the end of the movie, Orlock, I don't know if we should spoil the whole movie, I guess, but
well, I think
Orlock,
it's a key moment in the film.
Yeah. I guess I can't even remember exactly how it all plays out, but he figures out, or somehow he's informed that this is happening. Right. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, it's terrible," and he sees the guy. So
the guy has now climbed down because he dropped his gun.
That's right.
In his ammo, so he has to climb down and retrieve it. So he's at ground level. Orlock is up at the front of the screen because he was going to give his little speech at the end of the movie.
Right.
Meanwhile, people are trying to flood out of the theater. It's a traffic jam. It's absolute mayhem.
Yeah.
And Orloff's like, that's enough.
Yeah.
And he confronts the guy, literally walks up to him as he's being projected on the screen behind him. So the guy is a little confused as to what's real. Here's the guy, there he is, 20 feet tall.
Yeah, that's a fun little thing that happens. It's kind of silly, but it's fine.
And then Karloff just beats the hell out of him, and they arrest him. And that's basically the end.
Yeah, and that's cool. I like that. It's it's interesting because it's cut together in such a way to make it look like that could actually happen. But as you're watching it, you're kind of thinking Karloff can barely move.
He can barely
really.
walk.
Like he had a weird bow-legged walk already.
Yeah.
And by the time he got to be, I think in this film he's 156.
I think he is.
So he's
he was wheelchair bound and
Yeah.
on oxygen at this point,
Yeah.
but refused to let that stop him.
Yeah.
And would famously, they would be rehearsing, and I think more specifically for the 4 Spanish films, and they were rehearsing. Karloff would get up and go through it, and they're like, no, it's just rehearsal, Boris.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, this is my job. I'm a professional.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
All the way to the very end. So
that's cool.
he was I guess fragile at this point.
Yeah.
But he didn't let that show.
Right.
Because as he's walking up to the guy, it's, he's not going to take
slaps
this
him.
shit. Yeah, he
slaps him
just
and
beats him
the crap out of him with
down.
his. Well, so then the thing is, so he does this, and then he says, "Is that what I was afraid of?"
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I know what that means, and I think it's because it might mean a couple of things. So earlier in the movie, he mentions that because he's a horror film actor in the film, he's having a discussion about what's scary.
Right.
And he talks about these types of shootings as something that's really scary.
Yeah.
So on that level, I think he might mean that. Or he might just mean he was scared when he was walking up to the guy, because the thing about that is he doesn't look scared when he's walking up to the guy.
I think it was the first thing.
Okay.
But yet this guy now is sitting there whimpering in a fetal position. And he's a boy.
Yes, right.
And I think, is that really what I was so scared of? Is what everybody was so scared of, was this pathetic teenager huddled in a ball, whimpering, beat down by a 106-year-old.
Yeah. Washed up horror film actor.
Yeah.
Well, what's weird about that then is, what is this movie saying then? Because that is scary. This is really scary.
Genuinely
this is
terrifying.
Genuinely terrifing thing that happens. And probably, my apologies, probably happened this morning when you're listening to this.
Yeah,
it probably one happened.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, it probably should be even scarier to us than it is.
That's true.
But we've become so, you were joking in a way, but it's true. Every day there's some shooting somewhere.
Yeah.
It barely makes headlines anymore.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely tragic and unacceptable.
Yeah. And this film is made, I guess, not when that's the case.
No,
it's 50 years old, this movie.
Yeah. I would have to think that it was much more shocking.
Yeah.
Much less common. I mean, Columbine was sort of the beginning of the mass.
The modern era of it, or something?
Don't you think?
I remember Columbine having
a big thing.
Having that to it, yeah.
It was just like, this was unheard of.
I guess I can't even. It's such an absurd topic to even think about.
Yeah.
That the fact that this could happen is so weird.
Yeah.
But Columbine to me almost feels like just another stage. Like, oh, I see. Now we have this type. And then you've got Sandy Hook is like, oh, now we can just shoot kindergartners.
Yeah.
We just there'll be another one that'll be like, oh, now
we're going into the maternity ward.
Yeah,
and I probably just gave somebody an idea.
It's terrible. Oh, that's right though. That's what
I think
it is.
A lot of it is the casting of a guy named Tim O'Kelly, who plays this Bobby.
Okay.
Like you said, he looks very clean cut and normal. But as the film progresses, at least my perception of him changes very radically till he looks creepy and weird looking. He's a little off-putting.
Yeah.
And that happens before he goes on his spree.
Okay.
It's when he's setting things up at the house just before he kills his wife and his mother.
Yeah.
They're like the night before when he's getting everything ready, and he kind of walks into the house, and there's a slow zoom into the house, and then it fades out. You're expecting to hear gunshots at that point, and it doesn't happen till the next morning. But he is an odd kind of looking guy a little bit.
Well, and this is that's part of what I was saying about it. Maybe works better if you know what's going to happen, because like you say, you're waiting for it to happen. Yeah.
And he got around. This is one of the last things he did. But he was on the Monkees. He was on Batman. He was everywhere for a while, and then nothing. So I don't know if this typecast him in a way that
I was gonna say this experience.
Maybe the experience was like
Bogdanovich
wrote him hard, put him away wet. I don't know.
There you go. That's exactly right.
I don't know. I don't know what he's like as a director.
And I guess I don't I haven't heard anything.
I haven't heard
so
anybody
I don't know.
like badmouth him.
Yeah, I don't think.
He's badmouthed people himself, famously.
Yeah.
And continues to do so.
Mm-hmm.
He had a great string of hits there through the 70s, and then it just sort of left him.
Mm-hmm. Every once in a while I'll look him up and I'll go, oh, he put out a movie 5 years ago.
Exactly, yeah.
I didn't hear anything
about it. But he had, I think up through What's Up, Doc in the mid-70s was kind of the end of it.
Yeah, Paper Moon,
Last Picture Show.
Last Picture Show.
Yeah,
we're done.
Yeah.
Kind of. Well, he did Mask is the one.
Oh, yeah.
I remember with Cher and
yeah.
whatever that guy's name is.
Yeah.
Things like that. I think he made a movie that's about the... no, I can't even remember.
You're talking about Cat's Meow, about the murder on the Thomas Ince?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
One. Is that good?
That's pretty good, yeah. Yeah.
I should see that.
I'll lend it to you.
All right, good. So yeah, I think we've come to the end of my notes about this one.
Yeah, I pretty much,
because you kind of already covered the fact that we've covered everything. That this it's a really great finale for Karloff. This almost autobiographical thing that's not at all, like you said. It doesn't work because he
never had that bitterness that I've ever come across. He was always up to the very end. The monster was his best friend.
Yeah, and in this movie, he's not a monster. He's not an asshole about it.
No, he's just disillusioned and
He doesn't like the.
He doesn't like what Hollywood has become. Yeah,
yeah, but he likes Bogdanovich, and that's why he agrees to be at the drive-in.
Because of him. Yeah,
he insists, I'm not doing anything ever again, and then
I'll do this for you,
one thing.
Sammy. Yeah. And the Bogdanovich character has the script that he's trying to get him to read.
That's
and
right.
I think it's this script. I think it's the script for Targets.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I like it.
Because he's like, no, this is different. This is real.
Yeah.
So I think that he's pushing this script. It's art imitating life, imitating art.
Yeah.
Basically.
He died too soon afterwards, I assume, to say much about it. Do we know how Karloff felt about this?
According to Sarah, it was his favorite film of the ones that he was in.
Okay. Well, there you go.
So that's
good thing it made both our lists.
Yes.
But low on the lists.
Yeah,
what are you gonna do?
It's not a typical, not what you think is a typical Karloff.
Yeah,
it's not one I would go to again and again and again.
True,
because I enjoy watching it. It's a tough.
It's
a brutal thing to watch sometimes.
Yep.
For reasons that we've discussed. So that's why I think why it's not higher.
It's no, I'm just kidding.
It's the acting.
Bogdanovich
is acting. No, he's not bad.
He's not bad. He's okay.
Yeah. All right. So you want to do since that was my 9.
Since you did that's your number 9. So now it's
your
on
turn.
to my number 9.
Yes.
My number 9.
Number 9.
And I think we're going to have this where there's going to be a few repeats.
Oh,
in fact, the lists might just be identical in different orders.
Just in different order.
Well, no, they're not already because, that's all right.
Oh.
Number 9 is a movie called The Black Room. I don't know. When did Black Room come out? 36, 35. So
another busy year.
Is this before Bride then, or right around?
Bride came out at
time?
the end of the year, so.
Okay, all right. So it's kind of weird. Don't know because we talked about before how we were going to do this podcast. We do a sort of a summary of what the movie's about? And I guess you kind of have to. Make
a little bit, because if for the 3 or 4 people listening that haven't they may not have seen
The Black Room. So yeah, The Black Room is a sort of, I guess it's a horror film.
It's like a historical.
It's a genre film.
Yeah.
It has horror elements.
Aspects of it.
Yeah,
there's no real supernatural quality to it.
Yeah,
but there is. I mean, I'd say that Targets could be considered a horror film.
Yeah.
That's where when I worked in video, that's where I would classify it.
Well, and The Black Room, it doesn't have any supernatural elements, but it's interesting because it starts with a prophecy, and that prophecy has to be fulfilled because it's a movie.
Yes.
And that's how that works.
You don't start a movie with a prophecy and not have it play out.
If you introduce a prophecy in the first act, so the prophecy is really dumb, kind of. There's so much in this movie that is just kind of dumb. It's the prophecy is that these twins or these brothers, the older brother the younger brother will kill the older brother, and that will be.
Though.
No, that's true. The prophecy doesn't say that they're twins, but they are twins.
But they are twins.
Yeah. And that will be the end of this family.
The end of the line, yeah.
And that's fine, I guess. It's fine.
Hey, it's better than the prophecy at the beginning of King Kong.
What's the prophecy at the beginning of King Kong?
Lo, the beast looked upon beauty and stayed his hand from killing, or some gibberish.
Yes. So in this one, they So anyway, Karloff plays twins.
Yes.
He plays a good guy and a bad guy. There's no getting around it. The good guy is a really good guy. He's almost fey. He's just really sweet,
genteel, and he has his left hand is crippled.
No, actually, it's a plot point which hand it is. It's his right hand because he
I just saw
he's
it.
right-handed.
I just saw it.
He's right-handed,
and
so it comes up later. Well, I guess I could mention that part because it's kind of, you should watch this movie, folks, because everything I think I'm going to say about this movie is going to sound dumb. But like so the Karloff, the one brother kills the other brother, and the brother that gets killed has a paralyzed arm.
Yeah.
So the way they show this in the movie is Karloff just holds his arm up to his chest.
Yeah, he's got it kind of curled up.
Up, and so then the other brother takes on
and pretends
to be him, and that's how
Gregor
he does it.
Gregor is the bad brother. Anton is the good brother.
Yeah.
Gregor poses as Anton.
Yeah, because he's gotten himself in enough trouble from being the bad guy.
From being Gregor that he is.
that he gets a little bit of bonus time being Anton to see if he can see through some
So
scheme.
actually it's 3 performances for the price of 1.
Yep.
So you have, Anton.
Yep.
You have Gregor, and you have Gregor as Anton.
That's right.
And they're all very different.
That's true.
From each other.
Yeah.
He does a great job.
Yeah.
Of doing the dual role or the triple role.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't be more different from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you said Anton is almost fey, very composed, very proper, and Gregor will come and literally flop himself into a chair like a blanket, and is just and eating an apple very rudely, and he's abusive, and I always thought it reminded me, and I really noticed it watching it this week. It's almost like the narrator and the Grinch voices.
Okay.
They very
interesting.
Discern one another that way.
Okay. Well, and it's interesting.
Gregor is very gruff.
Yeah, when you're talking about it, because it's one of the things that one of the reasons we're doing any of this, but specifically Karloff Week, is because Karloff is a great actor.
Yes.
He's a great actor, and it's weird to say that because he's not an award-winning actor. He's not somebody that that anybody out that doesn't watch
outside of the genre
films would say is a great actor, and that's a real shame.
Because he gives such good performances.
Yeah, and because what you're asked to do in I just keep saying genre films. I don't know what to call it. Horror films, whatever. You're often asked to do something that's absurd. So what appears to be a great performance is someone that throws themselves into it.
Yeah.
And this is just amazing what he's doing here. And it's one other thing is we talked about this list and what it means. The list is our favorite Boris Karloff films, period, because we don't have too many rules and whatever.
Right.
It isn't his best performances, but in this case,
I think this is one of them. Yeah.
This is on the list for that reason. This is why this is a good movie. Is because of Boris Karloff and what he does in this movie.
Right.
And like you said, the 3 separate performances. Because as I say, the movie is very silly. It's full of very silly things that happen in it.
It is.
However, it is. This is the one, right? This is the one that's directed by
Roy
William Neill, which is a
name that'll
come
up.
We'll have plenty to say about Mr. Neill in a few years.
Yeah.
But his career is a short one.
Yes.
He directed, I think, 11 of those Sherlock Holmes movies.
There
was 14 of them, and he made
the bulk of them.
All of the bulk of them.
Yeah.
And then he died a minute later. He had a heart attack.
He finised the last one.
Finished the last one and fell over dead.
The mic.
Well, he made one other movie that's considered a film noir classic, and I can't remember the name of it. Black something, I think. But it's interesting because he's a guy that's not going to be given a Lifetime Achievement Award by the Academy by any means.
No.
But beloved by us, and we can talk about a whole bunch of stuff he did, and I think rightfully so. Because this movie's gorgeous.
It looks
and
great.
And the movie that we're going to talk about in a few years, I'll spoil it now, is Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. To me, is gorgeous.
It looks the first half hour or so looks great.
Yeah. Like you've said in the past, it's a great Wolfman.
It's a great Wolfman movie.
It's a better Wolfman movie than the Wolfman.
Yeah.
Right. And he owns that.
Yes.
He and that's what happens here.
Right.
This is a silly movie with silly things going on, and it looks beautiful.
Well, he manages to pull it off. And I think the gravitas that Karloff brings to it helps.
Yes.
A lot. A lesser actor would have made it silly.
Yeah.
It would have pointed out just how silly this really is.
Yeah.
Whereas Karloff, taking it very seriously, giving an excellent performance, one of his best, I think raises it up above its concept to make it a better film than it really is.
Yeah, I watched it, I don't know, like yesterday or something, and
yeah, I did too, actually.
The scene where it's there's a couple, I think, maybe, but there aren't too many scenes where you see him in the same twice in the same shot with a process shot.
The split screen, yeah.
It looks great, especially for
35,
35. It's not at all distracting, and again, that's partly Karloff. Karloff plays off himself, very effortlessly. So well,
the
Black Room.
I think Neil is what you'd call a journeyman director.
Okay.
But given the assignments he got, he did them very well.
Yeah, that's true. When I shouldn't give him too much praise.
No.
The Sherlock Holmes films, there's, like I said, there's 14 of them.
Yeah.
And he didn't make the best ones.
Well, the best ones came before it ever got to Universal anyway. But I think the Scarlet Claw is...
They're good. They're good
got a
movies.
nice creepy... It creeped me out as a kid because you weren't expecting that atmosphere. It's got the guy who's like luminescent running through the forest or something.
And I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's good. Check it out.
There you go. I think we kind of covered it. Oh, well, especially that scene. Well, the stuff with the dog is.
I was going to say
silly.
you gotta love a movie where the dog's the hero.
That's true. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I first saw it, I was worried the dog wasn't going to make it.
Yeah, that's always a concern. That's always a concern.
Yeah, so that was nice. And then the key point where he does see him in the mirror. The point about me saying that all this stuff is silly again is it works great.
Yeah.
And the part where he sees him in the mirror. So the as I say, I don't think I finished this thought before. Gregor playing Anton is pretending to be paralyzed and has his right arm paralyzed, so he's holding it, but he's asked to sign some paperwork.
Right.
So he
the
takes
key
the
there
pen.
is the key there is that Anton was left-handed because of the right hand being.
Yeah, presumably that's why. Yeah. And then so Gregor, as Anton takes the pen in his left hand, the guy turns around to make them a drink.
Yep.
And Gregor quickly switches to his right hand to sign, I guess, Anton's name. I don't know. It's kind of complicated. But the guy sees him because he sees him in the mirror.
Yeah.
And there you go.
There you go.
Again, it's silly and it works great.
Yeah.
So congratulations, Roy William Neal.
Yes. For
making the list.
Pulling this up from potential. And it's a Columbia. It's a B movie, but it works really well. And it looks great.
And it looks great.
Right, moving on. Number 8. My number 8 is The Raven.
No kidding.
Well, it's not the Raven you're probably thinking.
Jeez.
It's not the Raven we've discussed in the past.
All right.
This is from 1963, released January 25th from American International. Part of the Poe cycle of films that Corman made in the 60s. This is apparently the 5th one. Has almost nothing to do with the Edgar Allan Poe poem, but at least it's got more to do with it than the 1935 Raven. And it's just a much more superior film. Written by Richard Matheson. You can't usually go wrong with that.
I haven't even seen this movie.
Oh, you haven't seen it? Oh, it's a lot of fun.
Okay.
They're all having a good time.
Is Jack Nicholson in this one too?
Jack Nicholson is in this one too. I was wanting to mention that earlier, but I didn't.
Okay.
He's in this one. He's a little raw yet.
Okay.
He hasn't. He's trying to play it straight. He hasn't found his Nicholson-ness yet,
right?
Which I think you get around Chinatown.
5 Easy Pieces.
Easy Pieces, Chinatown.
Okay.
Yeah, right around the early mid-70s there.
Sure.
Yeah, pre Cuckoo's
Easy
Nest.
Rider. He's still kind of.
He's still playing it a little straight. Yeah.
He's the straight guy.
He is pretty much.
So it's kind of weird.
Yeah. Imagine that now, if you will.
Yeah.
This came about because they had just made a film
called The Black Cat. No, I don't.
No.
But they did make a black cat too, didn't they? Or was that a different thing?
That's a different thing.
That's a totally different deal.
There was a black cat from the 40s that you might be thinking of.
Oh, then it's got Lugosi.
Lugosi's in it, and
that's what it
Broderick
is.
Crawford, and
That's why I get confused. There's 2 black cats with Lugosi and 2 ravens with Karloff, and I don't know what's going on.
Well, they did a trilogy of terror. I forget the name of it, but it was like 3 stories, and one of them had a little comic element to it with Peter Lorre and Vincent Price.
Okay.
And they enjoyed doing that so much that Corman was talking to Matheson and said, let's do that again. Let's make a full out comedy out of one of these.
Okay.
And that was the genesis of this.
Boy.
Peter Lorre shows up at Vincent Price's castle. He's been turned into a bird, a raven, by Boris Karloff, the master magician, and wants to be turned...
Comedy of Terrors. Is that what it's called?
Well, Comedy of Terrors comes later. That comes after this.
Oh, okay. So
that's a whole different...
Wow, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
A whole different... Yeah, that's on my runner-up list.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. And it's just a lot of silliness, and Lorre ad-libs like crazy. Now, I've read alternately that Karloff and Price were annoyed by his ad-libbing. Karloff couldn't keep up with it. I don't believe that. I think he was... Yeah, he would want to follow the script, but I don't think it would throw him.
Yeah.
If Peter Lorre... They'd worked together before. They knew each other. They were really good friends.
Yeah.
I don't think that would have bothered him the way I've read that it does.
I guess I really don't know. I'd have to know more about... I don't know anything about what it was like to be on the set of any of the Karloff movies. The only thing I can think of, which is not related, is there's some delete or an outtake from Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, where I think Costello is ad-libbing a little bit, and you can see how it annoys Lugosi.
Yes.
So that kind of gives you gives the germ to the idea that Lugosi maybe wouldn't have liked.
Oh no, that's been.
Yeah.
There's in Ed Wood where he's on a live television show which is based on he was on Red Skelton.
Okay.
And was promised that Skelton wouldn't ad-lib. He was adhere to the script. Well, of course that didn't happen.
Okay.
And it threw him.
And this exists? People can see this?
Maybe. I don't know. I've never bothered to look, but I know it was based on a real incident.
Okay. Well, so there you go. The point of me bringing it up, I guess, is we don't have any idea about this with Karloff. We don't.
Well,
there's no reason to think so.
He was on a lot of those shows, and he would have had to have kept up. And he was a funny guy in and of himself, and I think he would have had no problem.
Yeah.
You know, he did a lot of live TV.
Okay.
Actually, this was his first film since 1958.
Jeez.
Yeah, he had done, well, he did Thriller.
He did a bunch of, Thriller.
The TV series in The Veil, a lot of radio, a lot of Broadway productions. You know, he got around. He just didn't, movies were not the focus of his career at that point.
Right.
Did something called Corridors of Blood, and then not anything till this, and then did just a handful in the 60s.
Yep.
This, Comedy of Terrors.
Black Sabbath.
Targets, Snake People,
the Sorcerers.
The list goes on and on. And there's a great thing at the end where Karloff and Price are dueling sorcerers or magicians, and they're having a battle back and forth.
I haven't seen this. Sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. I really am surprised you haven't.
Yeah, it's not even on. It wasn't even on my radar.
On your radar, really?
Yeah. Maybe it's on this one. We'll talk about this later.
We'll see if it is. We have a list here.
Let's see here. I have a list. I have a secret list. Yes, it is on this list.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
63, not
63. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Believe me.
All right.
I mean, yeah. We'll go into that one later. But that's interesting. Okay, cool.
Well, this is again part of the post.
He made too many movies. We were trying to come up with a list of movies, and so I did go and watch them. And The Black Room I hadn't seen until we went to make these lists. Right. So I was glad to see it made my top 10 list.
Well, here's a spoiler. It's on mine too. So,
okay, I kind of was wondering about the way you were not talking
not
about
talking about it a lot. Yeah.
So good.
And part of the post cycle where American International put these out, and Corman pretty much started that with Nicholson, not Jack, but Jim Nicholson, and Sam Arkoff, and notoriously cheap, notoriously fast. But by the 60s, Corman wanted to stretch his creative muscles a little bit and asked for a bigger budget. They did Follow the House of Usher. Huge hit, and led to like Pit and the Pendulum, blah, 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 of which this is one of them. They all look amazing. The sets are amazing. Danny Holler was the art director. Lloyd Crosby, the cinematographer. They look beautiful.
Who was the set director?
Danny Holler is different than Danny Hall.
Okay, because I was going to say, you've talked about this guy before.
No, different.
Because I remember.
It's Hall versus Holler, yeah.
Okay, good.
See, I pay attention to those stupid things that most people wouldn't ever even think happens.
Yeah, there you go.
And you've seen these sets show up on The Monkees.
Sure.
They're all over the place. And I think a lot of it was probably reused from previous ones. Certainly there's the famous shot of the castle with a lightning strike. It shows up on The Monkees. It's used in The Terror. It's used here. It got around.
Yeah.
You know the shot I'm talking about.
Yep.
There's actually two of them. One is like a landscape with the waves crashing against the cliffs and the castles up on the cliff. And there's another one. It's like a severe up angle looking up at like a parapet of the castle. They're both matte shots, matte paintings. And Monkeys used it a number of times. And
is it in Mad Monster Party, or is that?
No, that was all stop motion.
They did a recreation
they
of
might
it,
have,
probably.
Yeah, that was all stop motion.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So yeah, apparently Jack Nicholson hated the Raven.
Okay.
He got along with everybody, had a great time, but hated the Raven because it would crap all over him.
Oh, the Raven. I thought you meant the movie.
No, the actual bird.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, the actual bird. He hated working with the bird because it would crap all over him. Karloff wears this heavy cloak as it's set in like the 16th or 15th or 17th century, something like that. So he's got this long flowing robes and this really heavy cloak, which he hated because it was hot and heavy, and like he wasn't in the best of health by this point.
I was going to say, at this point, is he already starting to fall apart?
A little bit.
Did he die in 68? 69?
He died in 69.
Okay.
And so this has actually led to The Terror, which we talked about during Targets. Mm-hmm. They had the sets left over for a few days. Karloff agreed to do a couple days shooting for Corman. They shot some brief scenes and then made a totally incomprehensible movie, The Terror. There's actually a scene that they had to shoot where Jack Nicholson corners Dick Miller, throws him against the wall, and basically has him explain the plot. So you know what the fuck is going on, because otherwise you'd have no clue.
Yep, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of fun. That's my number 8. Check it out. You should see it. It's
I
fun.
guess, yeah. I'm going to have to do that. This is why we do this, so I can, learn these things.
Comedy of Terrors as well. You should check that out.
I've seen a little bit of that. That one seems a little... I watched like maybe the first 20 minutes or something, and I thought, I don't know where this is going, but...
It's enjoyable. It's okay. It's not as good. Vincent Price gets a little shrill in that as he sometimes
what was going on.
As he sometimes can.
And Karloff's role didn't seem to be didn't seem at the beginning at least didn't seem like it was going anywhere.
He's like a frail old man. And it plays itself out.
Okay.
It's fun. It's worth it for any movie where Peter Lorre is allowed to just be Peter Lorre.
Okay.
Is worth it.
Cool. Like M. No.
Yeah. He's hilarious.
He's hilarious in M.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen M.
Yeah, it is a laugh riot.
It is a laugh riot. Okay.
Moving on.
All right. So we're up to my number 8. My number 8, and I make no apologies for it, is House of Frankenstein.
Okay.
So now comes my apology for it. Now, here's the thing. I mean, I almost feel like I should apologize for it, but this is the nature of having a list of your favorite Karloff movies.
Well, we stress again, it's not the best, it's the favorites.
Yep, and I love watching this movie.
Yeah,
I've watched this movie... I don't know, dozens of times, right?
Yeah.
Because, so why am I apologizing for it? Because it isn't great. It's not
a
great movie.
Yeah.
But it's a competently produced movie.
It was exposed at proper light levels.
It's sound.
There is sound then, yeah.
There's a soundtrack with music, actually.
Yeah. It's a pretty good score.
Serviceable soundtrack.
Yeah.
It's got the Lon Chaney Jr. playing the Wolfman in it. It's got Glenn
the third time.
For the third time. Glenn Strange is the monster.
For the first time.
And John Carradine is Dracula for the first time.
Right.
And then, I'm not happy about any of that really, but it's fine, right? Like this movie's just fine. And the other thing is, it's not so. This movie like checks boxes basically. We're gonna have a movie. Well, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman was a hit.
Yeah.
Let's have Frankenstein meet the Wolfman again and put Dracula in it. And so that's literally what they do because they don't even meet each other.
No.
So it's just there's an opening half of the movie that has Dracula in it, and the second half of the movie that doesn't have Dracula. It has Frankenstein
basically
and the
a
Wolfman.
rehash of Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman.
The second
part, yeah, more or less.
Yes. Well, okay. So there's
with
one
some
difference.
added elements.
There's one difference that I think really makes it work, which is again, surprise, Boris Karloff.
Yes.
So Boris Karloff is a mad scientist, and that's it. He's not he's just a weirdo.
Nothing else to it. Yeah.
There's not a lot going on here.
Yeah.
He's again he throws himself into what he's asked to do, and he is perfect at what he's asked to do.
It's another example we referenced earlier where he realizes that this isn't the greatest script I've ever been given.
Yeah.
So he plays it a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Not to the point where he's camping.
I don't know. Yeah, no.
He's not camping it up, but he's aware
Yeah.
that this is subpar material. So
Yeah.
he's playing it to elevate it, give it a little layer that's not there in the script, I think. By giving it that little, there's the silliness of all the brains, or I'm going to give you the brain of the Wolfman and see how you like that, and you're going to get the brain or your brain's going into the Frankenstein.
I like the way you said that. I'm sorry, I'm laughing.
What?
I'm going to give you the brain of the Wolfman and see how you like that.
Well,
it's almost
basically
what he says.
what he says.
So yeah, that's
But he does
one of a series of flaws in this film that I love, right? So this is the problem, I think, with putting together a list like this in a way, and doing a podcast like this. Like that's so dumb, that part.
Yes.
But it's part of the reason we're here.
But it's part of what we love.
I want to talk about these movies minute by minute.
Yeah.
I love it. It's just it's so
well,
dumb.
this got eked out of my top 10, but it was on the list initially
Yeah.
at some point. Yeah, it got just eked out.
I kind of thought it had fallen out of your list because you made reference to talking about 3 Frankenstein movies, and I thought, what do you mean 3? Oh, but that is spoilers. Spoilers for the rest of the list here. But yeah, so I think I talked about in episode 0 about how I watch these movies and how I love the fact that now I have them loaded on a server at my house, and I can just put in it's called a playlist called Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise. And it just plays, all the movies in order. And this movie isn't a movie that my brain is capable of judging accurately because it's the next one.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter really so much that it's not great, I guess. But it's better than Ghost.
Oh yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. There's a lot
It
of
is a lot
fun
of fun
things happening in it. The Dracula stuff is
It's a great
pretty
Dracula story,
effective.
yeah.
The Dracula stuff is good.
And I think Carradine acquits himself pretty well in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
He gives it a film performance.
Yeah.
As opposed to theater.
Is this a Lugosi slam, or what are you?
I'm not saying that, but
yeah. So what are we at? 1944. So by this point,
this is number 6.
So at this point, we've already seen what's his name, Chaney play Dracula.
Which,
yeah.
Well,
it's just where do you start?
Yeah.
With how as much as we trash Lugosi and Dracula, we should talk about Son of Dracula sometime.
Yeah.
Because
but that has some great moments in it too.
True.
I can watch that. Not for probably the reasons that the filmmakers intended, maybe, but
when I watch that and I see Chaney's performance, I am laughing at him.
Oh yeah.
The entire
definitely.
time. Okay.
But it's got that creepy goth chick. She's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's true. And I thought you were just going to say it's creepy goth stuff generally.
Well,
which
just
Dracula movies do
in
well.
general, and yeah, it's got that Louisiana bayou sort of feeling, so that gives it an extra creepiness as well.
Yeah.
So I like that part of it. There's some great things, which we're probably not talking about right now because we're just go way off on a tangent. But it has some moments.
But it is relevant to think about what it means to bring Dracula and Frankenstein together, because this is when it finally happened.
Yeah.
Unless I'm remembering something, unless I'm forgetting something.
No.
How do you bring those things together? And the writer of this film, and I apologize for not knowing who it is, probably one of the Siodmacs or something.
Kurt had a hand in it, obviously, with all the brain nonsense.
Okay, that's right.
That's pretty much part and parcel of a Siodmac script.
So what he chooses to do is to not do it.
Right.
He just writes 2 movies.
Yeah.
And then the characters are literally just drive out of one movie and
into another
one.
Yeah, you never see the set of characters from the first half of the movie.
Yeah, everyone.
Dracula dies, and Neiman and Daniel go off on their merry little way to the next adventure.
And they meet the dancing
the
gypsy lady and all that stuff. Having said that, there is a way to do it, and we'll talk about that in years to come.
Yeah.
Which is Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein.
Yes.
The actual bringing together of Dracula and Frankenstein I find really effective.
Oh, that works really well.
It works really well given the constraints that we've already accepted, which is by that point the monster, it doesn't matter anymore. Nobody cares. He's just a big dummy.
Yeah.
So once you accept, and you have to have accepted by that
if you're
point,
making it that far.
you made it that far. Yes. So this film obviously has that problem too,
Yeah.
which is that the monster is just a big dummy.
They just don't know what to do with it anymore.
Yeah, they have no. It's
beyond. I think that I will get ahead of ourselves, but I think they made a fatal flaw in Son of Frankenstein by reducing him to the mute killing machine, and at that point, there's nowhere for it to go. Whereas Bride, he was growing.
Yeah.
And I think if they continued on that track, these films would be a lot more interesting. Now, would they be as much fun? I don't know.
That's probably exactly right. Because I was about to disagree with you. So, but I think that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Is it then becomes more fun?
Yeah.
And it also it puts a button on Bride.
Yeah.
Like Bride of Frankenstein is going to be talked about later.
You think?
I'm just going to leave it alone.
Possible, I guess.
Maybe we're skipping ahead. Forget this top 10 list shit.
Yeah. This I've mentioned in episode 0 was the first one I ever saw.
That's right. Yeah.
And clearly I enjoyed it immensely. And yeah, I'll be the first to say it's not a great film. It's not even a good film, but it's a lot of fun. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's part of this cycle, and love it or leave it.
And that's why it's on my list.
Yeah.
It's not. It's, as I say, I do feel like I should apologize, but that's how it works, man.
Not at all.
If you when the computer thing, when that website asked me which one I'd rather watch, essentially,
That's basically what it was.
I'm like, I'd rather watch House of Frankenstein than a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
There we go.
All right. So that was part 1.
That's part 1 of our top 10 Boris Karloff.
Surprisingly, we babbled so much about our favorite Boris
Somehow
Karloff.
exceeded the time limits imposed by no one.
By us, on ourselves.
Yeah, well, we figure that it's not fair to force people to listen to 4 hours straight of this kind of gibberish. So join us next time for part 2 of our top 10 favorite, not best necessarily, but favorite Boris Karloff films. Brought to you by the makers of Frankenstein Minute, the podcast that dissects the Frankenstein film series minute by minute. Look for it wherever fine podcasts are sold.
Belong dead.
Boomer!
Bummer.